Please, if you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Jumped ahead.
Without objection, Council, I'd like to take just a moment and remind the community that we lost two leaders in our community in the past week to 10 days. Miss Patty Jones, a 45-year tenured instructor at the university, was very instrumental in developing the international program and the English as a second language program. She recently passed away. Patty was also on our fire pension board. And then we also lost Carol Stewart, a 41-year dedicated employee and member of the community serving at McDonough District Hospital. Carol was a nurse there. She was also a clinical specialist, and she also served in the last few years on the McDonough District Hospital board. I'd like to call a moment of silence in memory of these two respected women. Thank you. If the clerk would call the roll, please.
Justin Shu.
Here.
John Vajezi. Byron Shabazz.
Here.
Dave Dorsett.
Present.
Ashley Katz. Don Nguyen. Dennis Moon.
Here.
4 present.
We have a quorum. Thank you. I'd like to call a public hearing to consider an application by Illinois Ayers Oil Company for a Class P plus OPC liquor license. We have members from the Airco company here, and if you could come down and maybe just share with the council, sir, and I know you brought some help with you. If you could identify both of yourselves for the record, and then tell us what their plan is at the Airco station, please.
Good evening. My name is Kurt Adams. I'm president of Illinois Ayers Oil Company. We own and operate the Airco convenience centers scattered throughout west central Illinois. And we have Tammy Taylor from Curo Group. Curo and J&J Gaming partnered together.
And it's your plan to get a packaged liquor license and then operate video gaming. Is that correct,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Adams?
We're applying for the package and in talks with members of Macomb, Lisa Scaff, building inspector, and fire chief in regards to if we can hit all requirements that the city has asked for.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions from the council for Mr. Adams regarding his plans at the Airco station and the 300 block, 300 block of West Jackson? Alrighty. Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak in favor of or in opposition to the proposed liquor license at Illinois Air Oil Company on West Jackson here in Macomb? Hearing none, we'll conclude the public hearing. Anyone wishing to make address to the City Council on matters germane to the agenda of tonight's meeting will be limited to 3 minutes and are asked to be brief and concise in making their remarks. Comments submitted by mail or email will not be read aloud, but a copy will be provided to each member of the council and made a part of the minutes of this meeting. Does anyone wish to speak to the council or to the public comment section of the agenda tonight? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to sit as the Township Board.
So moved. Second.
So moved and seconded to sit as the Township Board. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Okay, Mayor Inman.
Aye.
Shu.
Aye.
Shabazz.
Aye.
Dorset.
Aye.
Moon.
Aye.
All ayes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Board members, before you is the consent agenda, including a audit services agreement with Baker Tilly U.S. LLP for auditing services for the township. Entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Move to adopt the consent agenda as presented. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Okay, Shu.
Aye.
Shabazz.
Aye.
Dorset.
Aye.
Moon.
Aye.
Mayor Inman.
Aye.
All ayes.
Motion carried. Thank you. There is no old business. There is no new business. Does the supervisor or the assessor have any comments they'd like to make for the record?
In the agreement with Baker Tilly US LPP, the there is a significant increase in the fees for the auditing and services. Jason did say that we could look at possibly just doing 1 year with them, and then if we wanted to look for somebody else the next year, or maybe negotiate a different or the same price, he would look into that with us.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Hearing no other business, I'd take a motion to resume as a city council.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Shabazz.
Aye.
Dorset.
Aye.
Moon.
Aye.
Mayor Inman.
Aye.
Shu. All ayes.
Motion carried. Thank you. We're now back in the city council portion of the agenda, and before you is the consent agenda for the council. And entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Motion to adopt is presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Okay. Dorset.
Aye.
Moon.
Aye.
Shu. Shabazz.
Aye.
All ayes.
Motion carried. Thank you. There is no unfinished business this evening. Under new business, item number 1, consideration of an ordinance to create a Class P plus OPC liquor license for Illinois Ayers Oil Company. This will be first reading.
Thank you. Illinois Ayers Oil Company, doing business as Airco Convenience Center, is located at 318 West Jackson Street and has filed an application requesting the creation and issuance of a Class P plus OPC liquor license. Upon receipt of the application, we compiled a list of record owners within 250 feet of the property, provided them written notice of the public hearing, published notice of the public hearing in the community news brief, and posted signs at the subject property. We did hold the public hearing tonight, February 18th, 2025. Background investigations have been requested from the Macomb Police Department. At this time, the city has not received any written protests from any of the record owners or any member of the public. As I mentioned, we did conduct the public hearing. If adopted, the ordinance provides that council approves the location of 318 West Jackson Street for the sale of alcoholic liquor and creates a Class P plus OPC liquor license for Illinois Ayers Oil Company, doing business as Airco Convenience Center.
Thank you. That'll stand as first reading. We'll place that on next week's committee of the whole agenda for further discussion. Item number 2, presentation of the Chandler Park Master Plan. There's a memorandum in your packet from the city administrator. We have a representative from Farnsworth here with us this evening. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So shortly I'll turn it over to Amy here at Farnsworth if you want to come up to the podium. So this is a culmination of our Chandler Park study that we've been working on for about a year now, eight months to a year. I think we had a very great process, and I think we have very good results to show off here. So I'll let Amy start.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. As Scott said, I'm Amy Wilson with Farnsworth Group. I'm a landscape architect with them. We started this process not quite a year ago, and what you have in front of you is the vision book, which is a culmination of the process. And I am just going to highlight the process as we went through it. I'm not going to flip through every page or we'd be here probably all night. So out of respect for you, I'm not going to do that. But I am going to highlight some things. And then we have a fly-through animation that we'd like to share with you of some 3D imagery of the proposed plan. So we did begin by doing a full site analysis of Chandler Park as it exists now with the amenities. From the existing monuments, the history, we looked at existing vegetation, which is very important to the park, made sure that we had all of that information accurate and documented all of that in the beginning area, the beginning section of the book called Existing Conditions. Then you will, as you flip through, pass the site photos of the existing conditions, and you will come to the next section, which is called Public and Stakeholder Input. And that actually highlights the process that we went through in order to gather input prior to ever lifting and putting pen to paper as to what potentially Chandler Park could become. So you'll see that begins on page 27 of the vision book. We did host a public design workshop where we had quite a bit of people come out. We did a little bit of a design shred with that. And the public design workshop, you'll see imagery from that. And then there are bullet points in each of those sections that discuss what was brought up, concerns of the community, wants, desires for the space. We also conducted a public input survey online, and that was to gather additional information for maybe those we did not see come out to the public design workshop. And that was left up for just under a month, and you can see the outcome of that feedback that is in there as well. There are some graphic analysis. And finally, we did some one-on-one interviews with key stakeholders that were identified by city staff, key stakeholders in the community that either host events in the park or use the park in various ways, and put together a hierarchy and prioritization of the concerns and needs for Chandler Park in that section as well. The next section of the book flips to the master plan, and you'll see that begins on page 42. And what this truly is a summary of all of that front-end work. And we listed, you see a list of 10 items there, and those are the programming items. So those are the things that we are trying to accomplish and prioritize for Chandler Park. The Chandler Park Master Plan is a plan that is helping to guide development and preservation within Chandler Park for the next 5 to 10 years. So this, I do stress that this is a planning document, and so as funds become available for different components of the park or as development happens, those items would then move into a design stage, design development, where they would become more of a reality, and we'd be looking at construction and actual costs at that time. So the programming on the left side, like I said, the 10 items, I am going to go through those because I think it's important to know how the site is laid out because of those. So the existing monuments that are all within Chandler Park are going to remain. They're not all going to remain in the same location, but they are all going to remain within the park in some capacity. They would be, some of them would be relocated to the west side of the park, and we'd be creating a historical quadrant. So all of those monuments, so it would be the Ruth Watts Memorial Fountain would be relocated, the Veterans Memorial would be relocated, as well as the McDonough Monument. A new water feature would be created in a central plaza to Chandler Park that would replace the existing fountain. So the existing fountain would be removed, but that water feature would then be rededicated to Ruth Watts. The third item that we would be creating is a fenced-in play area that would be east of the central plaza. We would be relocating the concrete sculptural play pieces that are in the northwest quadrant currently of the park. Those would be relocated to the east side in a mulch play surface. And then beyond that, on the other side, there would be a new universal design playground area developed with a unitary play surface, so a solid play surface that would be accessible. The majority of the existing trees on site are to remain and be protected. There are 3 trees that we've identified based off of our new master plan that would need to be relocated. We've recommended relocation of those in the near future versus waiting because they are currently small enough to do so and still have success in thriving. 4 trees, however, have been identified to be removed. One of the trees to be removed is a larger tree in the southeast quadrant, but it is also on the invasive tree species list for Illinois. So I've heard it's quite the controversial tree. The next item that I want to draw attention to is that we would be creating a dedicated area for farmers market space as well as Heritage Days vendor spaces. They would have adjacent power receptacles and there would be water hookups as well. This would have bollards at the back of these spaces with a chain barricade that would prohibit and restrict vehicular access within the park area. We are recommending doing this so that way you are going to reduce compaction and damage to the trees and to the park that you're seeing now during the festivals. The infrastructure updates would be made throughout the park to include new accessible sidewalks with brick paver edging. So the existing brick paver sidewalks would be removed. We would have new perimeter curb and gutter around the outside of Chandler Park. We would be creating a bike lane on the east side of Chandler Park and pushing out the angled parking that currently exists there to allow for that. We would be upgrading the electrical service for the entire park and relocating that to a central location in the back of the proposed performance and restroom building. We would introduce new LED pedestrian lighting throughout the park along all of the sidewalks for security reasons. And we would also be upgrading and providing technology within the park. Flags of love pipe sleeves and plugs will be placed throughout the park. They will be adjacent to the sidewalks. So based on the new proposed master plan layout, there actually allows for opportunity for additional flags should the committee so desire to do that. The performance shelter that is currently the existing gazebo would be removed. We'd be proposing a new performance shelter to be designed in the northeast section of the park. On the back of that performance shelter would be public restrooms. So it would be a permanent restroom facility, and in that there would also be a mechanical room and a small storage space. Informational kiosks similar to those that you see downtown would be proposed at the corners of the parks as well as at the trailhead on the east side of the park. And it would include educational information regarding the park and also its monuments and memorials. So during the public input, we did find that so much history and things have occurred in Chandler Park, and we're just not really conveying that information well. So that would be an educational component to the master plan. And then the last item I wanted to mention, and I already briefly touched on it, is that there would be a bicycle trailhead on the east entrance to the park. So as the bike lane runs up along the east side, in the middle where that is isolated away kind of from the vendor areas would be a trailhead with bike parking, bike repair station, as well as an informational kiosk, and then a bottle filler and drinking fountain. So the master plan on page 43 highlights that graphically, all of what I just mentioned, and pulls that together. Again, all of the items to remain in place are indicated. You'll see those are actually in darker letter circles, and whereas the proposed, the white numbered squares are your existing items to remain, and your proposed items are the blue lettered circles. Following that, we do have some 3D imagery of specific areas. So page 45 is the central plaza where the water feature is mentioned. Those would be proposed at this time to be at-grade surface jets with lighting, so those can be controlled, and that housing, that manifold, would be in part in the back room of the performance shelter and the restroom building. Those can be turned on and off. They can be programmed. They are meant to be interactive, so if children and adults alike would like to walk through those, they will be welcome to do so. You can see in that, expanded in the back, on the right side is the concrete play sculpture with the gazebo off to the left. Flipping the page, you'll see there is a view of the playground, both playgrounds with the existing and proposed elements. There is an image of the trailhead, an image of potentially what the performance shelter could be. Again, it's in there, it's stylized just to indicate size and scale, but can be modified and designed when the time comes. There is an image for what the back of the performance shelter would have, so it shows a bottle filler, drinking fountain, the restroom doors, and then potential opportunity for a community forum board on the side of that, or a message center. The farmers market areas are vendor stalls that are paved. We discussed potentially that would be an opportunity for permeable paving, potential for additional drainage in that rather than adding non-permeable surfacing to that. But the delineation and the pavers and somewhat of the stalls would help to organize the farmers market and assign individuals to specific spaces. The curbs on the outside of those sidewalks adjacent to the vendors would be roll curbs, so that if a vendor does sell out of their vehicle, they are able to mount the curb and park and utilize that space with vehicular sales versus a tent. And if there is overflow, there is plenty of lawn space to the north of those farmers market vendors areas. as well as to the west of the ones on the east side, so that you could have tents in addition to those stalls. There is a picture of the Veterans Memorial proposed area as relocated to the west side. So we would be utilizing and removing all of the current existing engraved bricks and relocating those and creating a new plaza for those all to be together, as well as the granite blocks that have been engraved, the benches, and the memorials and the flags. So they would all be pieced together in a new memorial. As you continue to flip, you'll see views of the historic quadrant. One of the items you can see in the back of those photos is also relocation of the cannon. So that will be relocated, and it's placed towards the inside, so behind the Civil War monument. The last section highlights conceptual costs. So again, these are high-level costs for different elements, and they're divided as such between infrastructure improvements, monument relocation, the performance shelter, restrooms, play area, farmers market vendor area, the central plaza with the water feature, the trailhead, and landscape items. We did itemize it as such and give an overview of the cost totaling $3,280,872. There is a 20% design contingency as part of that, and then we do ask that you understand if this is not, and nothing's done with this for 5 years, to please, consider that there will be approximately a 3 to 5 inflation percentage per year for construction materials and labor and such. So we do urge that it's preliminary in nature, and then when funding becomes available, that you do create more detailed plans so you can get more accurate construction costs at that time. There are funding sources that we have identified for different components of the project and discussed those with Scott. And I do know that there are some things that potentially they could be seeking in the future. So if nobody objects, I will show the fly-through, the animation, if you'd like to see that. I will highlight that when we go through and it starts to play, the first round, the aerial from above, is quick. I'm not going to say anything or mention anything at that time, just kind of take it all in. And then when you make it around a full 360, it'll enter at the corner, at the northwest corner at the CV Chandler Arch, and then it will slow down, and then I can highlight different areas in the video for you. So this is from the north looking south. East looking west. From the south looking north. And then from the west looking east. And then we'll come down to the arch at the corner. So you can see highlighting there are new widened sidewalks. The main X-axis that exists currently would remain. The new sidewalks would be the window pane, a California finish that you see in downtown with brick edging. Benches would be located, as well as trash receptacles and lighting throughout the site. You're now making your way over to the northeast quadrant, where you'll see that's where the performance shelter and restroom building is situated. Now we're entering into the play area. Moving over, you can see there's the trailhead location. And now we're headed down to see where the farmers market and the Heritage Day vendor stalls are along the east. And then those same stalls are on the south. Coming in now, headed towards the central plaza, where the water feature is situated. Now headed back towards the south. I will highlight here, as we're approaching right here, there's a garden area. That is actually a garden area that will be rededicated to Gus Schaefer. So the planters that are at the southeast corner are going to be removed. So that memorial is going to be rededicated. Now we are at the southwest corner, and now we're moving up. There's the relocated McDonough Monument. We have the Women's Day Monument, as Civil War Monument, the relocated Veterans Memorial, conclude.
Okay, a lot of information. Any questions for Amy at all?
Well, this is, I received a letter about the gazebo. Was there any discussion about that? Sure, yeah. Is there any discussion about that?
I think everyone did. So internally, we've had some discussions about what that may look like. Scott, do you want to comment at all on that?
Sure. The current gazebo that's there now was built in the mid '80s, so it's not that old. Honestly, it's not. It needs to be rebuilt in the condition it is now. So it's not a good performance space. It's not ADA accessible. It's not big enough for a performance space in the what it's used for currently. So our plan with this is a rendering, an idea. When we get to the design stage, one possibility is that that performance space we'll discuss if that takes on features that looks like a gazebo or something like that. That's one possibility, but the current gazebo needs to be rebuilt or refashioned in something that's more usable. So.
Right. Well, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alderman Dorsett.
Thank you for your presentation. It's actually a very nice presentation and a good plan. Change is hard, and this is at least the second gazebo I know of. The original one has been long gone. We've looked at this for many years, and if we attempt to get everything everybody ever wanted, we'll never go forward. So we have to make our decision about what it is we want to do for the next 50, 75, 100 years and make the best choice we have. So thank you for helping us do that.
Anyone else? Alderman Shabazz.
I think I asked the question really because when the letter came, I think it was a way to publicly acknowledge that we have addressed that or it was considered. And that's really why I wanted to ask the question, so that however this gets out, that it's understood that it's discussed and considered. Thank you.
Sure. I handled an email from a concerned citizen today, and I assured them that we were grateful for their input and that we were taking means to have a discussion on what it might look like to get done what Scott has suggested.
Yeah.
So we're listening.
Yes, yeah.
You,
Yes, thank you.
Scott, anything from you?
No, I just think, as Alderman Dorsett has said, there's lots of change proposed in this, but the current park is very tired. It's very heavily used by lots of folks, which is great, but it's not ADA accessible. There's lots of trip hazards, so we need to do something to improve it. And I think this is a great plan. Farnsworth has done a wonderful job taking lots of comments and distilling it down to something that I think is a great way to move forward. And we have to have something like this, a well-documented plan for these grants. I mean, the intention is this will be mainly grant funded. We'll have to have some match for most of the grants we're talking about, but either an OSLAD or ITEP grants. So I think it's very doable to get most of the funding from those grant sources and move forward with this. And our hope is as soon as those grants come available, we'll start applying. Jessica's watching for them. And that I would hope that within 5 years we'll be well under construction. But that's dependent on the grants. So.
Yeah, looks good, and like he was alluding to, just modernization. Things change and safety updates, and you kind of got it all in this plan. So good job, thank you.
One of the things I was concerned about, and Amy was kind enough to interview me as part of some of those stakeholders that you interviewed, and I think there was a lot of history here, and one of my strongest concerns was respecting that history. None of us in this room knew C.V. Chandler, but I think he obviously had a plan and a desire, and I think it is well represented and respected in this document that you've created, and I thank you for that. And I'm much more excited about it than I was when we started the discussion. And it's the imagery that you shared with us here tonight in the video is quite something, and I think it nails it right on the head as to what this could look like. One question I might have, and maybe I misunderstood you, are we representing most of the trees that are currently there in these diagrams?
Yes, so all of the trees in the beginning are actually documented as they are now. And so then the trees that are shown in the master plan are the ones that are being relocated and to remain. So
good.
that's a majority of those.
Because that's one of our underlying concerns here is all the vehicular traffic, what it's doing to the long-term sustainability of that little miniature urban forest we have there in Chandler Park.
Yep.
It's not been good for them, but this addresses that, so thank you. Any other comments? Well, we'll receive and file this, and I'm sure it will be a matter of discussion at some meetings in the near future about how we can proceed about implementation. So, thank you. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Item number 3, consideration to approve Ripple Glass Recycling. There's a memorandum in your packet from the city administrator. This was also discussed at the Community Development Committee last week. Scott, can you go over your memo in here, please?
Sure. Real briefly, so almost 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, a group of citizens came and spoke with the mayor and myself about improving glass recycling in Macomb and the surrounding area. Mayor and I were very clear, we do offer curbside collection with recycling for our citizens, but they see this type of item-specific recycling for glass is much more efficient than doing commingled for glass, because when the glass bottle gets broken and commingled, it doesn't end up being recycled typically. So, and they're looking at this from a county perspective, so we said we would help them in kind, but we would not provide financial support as they move forward. So it's taken them almost 2.5 years to get this far, but they have gotten everything underway, and they've received a grant from the Glass Recycling Foundation to purchase a dumpster from Ripple Glass and for $15,000, and a grant from the Fellheimer Foundation for $38,000 to build an enclosure to store the glass after the dumpster is full. So this process is taking very long, and honestly, we didn't know if they would get this many grants. So we're finally coming to a point where we've got to ask for permission to proceed with this, because they're wanting to launch this spring. So it was kind of an interesting process to get to this. So we took it to the Community Development Committee last week, and we're here before council to ask for permission to proceed with this. So.
One thing I want to make sure was clear is that the city will have no real dollars invested here, no cash money. We did suggest that with council approval, we could facilitate the location of a bunker to hold the glass as it awaits an ultimate pickup and shipping to a recycling facility, kind of an intermediate place after the containers full at a local business, and then taken and dumped by Waste Management, and the containers cleaned with a power washer, and then replaced back out at the collection site. They've been very tenacious. They've gotten the support of the majority of the townships in the county to underwrite some of this program as well. I think that speaks volumes to the potential need out there, and our main role here is facilitation rather than active participation. Excuse me. Any questions? Would entertain a motion to approve and entering into an agreement with the Ripple Glass Recycling Program.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Alderman Dorsett.
I am hesitant to back this. I have not been supportive to this point, not because I believe it's a bad project. It's because I am concerned about getting into something else where we have no commitment now, but what happens down the road. Once you introduce a program, it's very hard to take it away. And I'm going to mention later that I'm not sure that we're going to have all the revenue funds and streams that we're used to. And so that's why I have real concerns. We spend $18,000 a month now on the recycling program we have. And going forward, I think we have to be very careful what we get into.
Thank you. I wouldn't disagree with you, and I think we made it clear to these, this is the local women's club, that they're the backbone of this. We're merely facilitating it, and then without the participation from the entities outside the city, we wouldn't be in a position to go forward with it. So they were understanding of that. But I do agree that sometimes expectations come. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'd entertain roll call, please.
Moon,
No.
Shu. Aye. Shabazz.
Aye.
Dorset.
Aye.
3-1.
Motion carried. Thank you. And we would applaud the women that have put this proposal together. As I said, they've been tenacious, and that may be an understatement. Item number 4, consideration to authorize a vendor selection for the Healing Illinois grant for the Macomb Police Department. There's a memorandum in your packet from the police chief. Chief Hamer, would you mind going over that for us, please?
Yes, thank you. I'll draw your attention to the memo. As you know, we received a no-match grant for racial healing. That was approved at council on February 3rd, not the 2nd. There's a typo there. That award has been awarded, and then the funding has come through. I'm here to seek permission to spend those funds for a professional service provider to expertly train the police department, area police, and also hold a community workshop session. Having done research, the research for this vendor began last year when we first had the racial healing grant. And Dwayne Bryant from Intervision International was like the runner-up for last year's award, and I reached back out to him for this year's award. He's an international trainer. He's also trained, he's based out of Illinois and also Florida. He has 2 offices. He's done training in Springfield, Illinois. I've spoken with officers from that department. He's got a slew of media on YouTube that's accessible. But what's important, he's also an ILETSB trained instructor. ILETSB, the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board, which is important because then kind of 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only do we do the racial healing component, but we also get credit for training mandates as officers, cultural competency, de-escalation, and procedural law, just to name a few. So it's important training mandates that we're always aiming for, and this will be a way to knock those out, and then also provide that community session in the evening. His training is a blend of mutual respect for police and community as well. So this kind of ties in with not only our 10 shared principles with the NAACP, but also my own leadership style of dignity and respect. So the total for advertising, training site, the police seminar, and the community workshop would be less than the $25,000 awarded. Since the timing of this memo, I have had hard figures come in. His presentation comes in at $24,360. Give or take some change. The room cost is $260, and the remainder, about the $375 and change, would be advertising and media to promote the event. And I believe I can also hook up maybe a special route with Go West to get people to the event. And I plan to hold it at SRC Extension there on East Jackson. The date is also wrong there. It's going to be March 6th, not March 3rd, March 6th. So with that being said, I'll entertain questions or comments.
Questions for the chief? All righty. Hearing none, we'd entertain them. I'm sorry, Alderman Shabazz.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, particularly under present circumstances, I want to thank you. I think it's necessary, and I'm happy to see that we're still, as a community, forging forward with issues of diversity. So thank you.
Thank you.
We'd entertain a motion to approve the professional service arrangement that the chief has outlined here.
I'm sorry.
Motion to approve.
Oh, second.
Moved and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Shu. Aye. Shabazz.
Aye.
Dorset.
Aye.
Moon.
Aye.
All ayes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. There is no other new business this evening. Are there any committee reports? Alderman Dorset.
Yes, the Macomb Area Convention Visitors Bureau will be moving forward with some more murals in the near future, one of which will be inside, if the city council agrees, the inside the Thomas C. Carper Amtrak Depot. So just wanted to let you know that the request would be coming forward from CVB. They will have a design, will be related to the Underground Railroad, the idea that Underground Railroad tying in with the depot. So that will be on our agenda sometime in the very near future.
Very good. Thank you. Any other committee reports? Already hearing none. Aldermanic reports. Alderman Moon.
No report.
Thank you, sir. Alderman Dorset.
Yes, I do have some concerns based on what I said earlier. I've shared these with the administration. Now's as good a time as any to talk with our constituency. I have real fears that chaos and unreliability in Washington and revenue shortfalls in Springfield may very soon affect services the city of Macomb can offer residents. What those may be, we don't know. It's too soon to tell. But it's foolish to assume there will be no impact at the municipal level. My opinion is folks need to understand we hope for the best, but we need to be preparing for the worst unless there are rapid changes in current circumstances.
Thanks, sir. Alderman Shabazz.
Yeah, two things. Again, I want to thank you, Chief, for your continued work as police chief, but your work in diversity. And again, under present circumstances, I honor you and thank you for doing that for us, for our community. Secondly, for Black History Month and somewhat from ML King Day, we have a speaker this Sunday at Mount Calvary at 11 o'clock for in the Black History Month this Sunday again at 11 o'clock at Mount Calvary. Dr. James Purnell will be here to speak.
Very good. Anything else, sir?
That's it. Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Thank you. Alderman Shu.
No report.
Thank you. Madam Deputy Clerk, anything? Okay. Anyone on this end? Mr. Coker, anything else? All righty. I'd like to call an executive session to consider information relative to the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body pursuant to Section 2C5 of the Open Meetings Act and the setting of a price for sale or lease of property owned by the public body pursuant to Section 2C6 of the Open Meetings Act.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to go into executive session. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Shabazz.
Aye.
Dorset.
Aye.
Moon.
Aye.
Shu. Aye. All ayes.
Motion carried. Thank you. For the media, there'll be nothing coming out of tonight's executive session. We will take a minute before we go in, though.